So welcome to class 2 of Jumpstart Your Joy. So excited to be here again. We'll start our evening with just a check-in. I'll have a couple questions for you to answer, and then we'll talk about anything you might have done between last week and this week, and if you had any questions about the meditation, the joy box, the joy list, all that stuff. And
You're
we'll,
frozen.
oh,
You were frozen for a second, Christine.
that started a few moments ago, so all I can say is bear with me. Actually, let me see if I turn the Wi-Fi off my phone. Some folks have said that sometimes that helps.
Mm.
Um, let's see. My apologies. Um, the computer's still connected. I turned my phone off, so let's see if that makes any difference. So the check-in questions. One is, how are you feeling? Oh, you're frozen again. So the one question is, how are you feeling? So if you can do it in one word or a short phrase, how are you feeling right now? Whatever that is. And then the other question is, what is one positive thing, one of your positive qualities, something you like about yourself? It could be a skill, it could be, an attribute, it could be a physical feature. Just what's something good about you that you like? So, how are you feeling? And then something you like about yourself. Anyone want to volunteer to start? Cynthia.
I don't mind going first. I feel relaxed. And something I like about myself is I bring people together.
Okay. Thank you. Laura, did I see that your hand was up?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm feeling chilly. And I think I like it that I can sew.
Oh, great. Thank you. Molly?
I feel tired, as I frequently do in the evenings. And I like that I tend to see the positive side of things. And I'm realizing that that's different from most people.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. And Carol?
I can share in the tiredness. I'm just kind of pooped out tonight. But something I like about myself is that I enjoy performing.
Mm-hmm. Fabulous. Okay. Well, I'm so glad that each of you were willing to share. Thank you so much. So, between last week and this week, I'm curious and just sharing whatever you might want to, or if you have any questions. Did you create a joy list? Did you work on that more? Create a joy box? Do the meditation? Did you make an intentional effort to experience joy? Just anything you might want to share. It's not good or bad, it's just a check in.
Well, I was, each day I focused on something that I was grateful for. The small things, like running hot water or a warm building that I come into from a cold day, just small things like that. Um, and I definitely have tried to do a little bit of meditation about 5 times in the last week, and that certainly makes a big difference just to quieten down the noise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, as I was reviewing my notes and looking at a notebook, I actually found a joy list that I had started who knows when. But a lot of the things that I thought of during our class were actually already on that list. So
Hey, that's kind of fun to see that there's a consistency there. Cool.
There was a time last week when I was thinking, I was thinking about joy, and I recalled what my really intense, joyful memory was. And it's like, okay, that brought me instantly into joy. So I have been accessing these joyful thoughts more
Yeah.
and, reviewing my joy list.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you.
I was not intentional with anything this past week, Christine.
That's all right. That's all fine.
Okay.
Hey, you're doing the positive thing. It's just, classes are what they are and life is what it is. And so it's also my belief that, I mentioned, I don't know if you'd heard last week, I think we're all here, as the right people to come together for this period of time, whatever it may be. And it's my belief that we get what we need. And even if, you know, we aren't always intentional about things, there could be seeds planted, and at some point that might grow. You never know, what the overall dynamic and intention or outcomes could be when there's a gathering of people. So there's never an expectation to work at this, especially.
I will say though that I think the day after, so Wednesday of last week, my son, who's 16 years old, came home from school and I said, Adam, you frequently tell me that you are bored because he's very bored he doesn't like school, he's not engaged with it at all, and he just wants to be done with it. He's a junior in high school. And I said, what's interesting was, and then I explained how you showed us the diagram. I said, boredom is right in the middle. And if you want to feel better, you can do things to feel better. And it was a very brief little description, but I did share it with him. And so just, so I did pass on your insight. So there you go, Christine.
Yay. See the things you did, hadn't even realized you'd done it.
There you go.
Yeah, I think there's so many of these opportunities that can be the little things. So in the email on Friday, I had included information about a Global Joy Summit. Anybody happen to check into that?
Not yet.
So this is, to me, kind of the magic of the universe, how it works. So I'm on an email list, and intermittently, someone within this really large group sends information to a point person, and that point person sends it out. Well, I got the email just a couple days before this Global Joy Summit started. I was like, this is really cool because I'm into joy and I'm teaching this class right now. So it started on Sunday. The kickoff was the movie Mission Joy, which is the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu coming together to talk about joy. And this movie is just really, really powerful. And then I've listened to a couple of the other presentations. There's all kinds of speakers, like last night, today. And so it's just inspiring to me that it's being talked about now. And we happen to be on this in this class. And it reminds me that I'm not the only one talking about joy, because in my small world, it feels like nobody talks about joy. And the fact that there's a global summit going on right now, it just inspires me and encourages me to keep doing these little things. And hopefully each one of us can just continue to spread that joy. So just because I'm talking about that now, and it's one of the random references I listed. So the Book of Joy, so the movie Mission Joy is created after this book was published, which was, again, the interview with Desmond Tutu, the Dalai Lama. Douglas Abrams was the interviewer. It's a very inspiring book because each of them have been through so much and they still live in joy. And so the book talks about the pillars of joy. What are those core things that help us build joy? What are the obstacles to it? And so if you're wanting to continue on this topic, that could be something you might check out doing. And so then the other thing that I was just listening to tonight before class, I don't know if any of you happen to see that Robin Roberts interviewed Michelle Obama on television Sunday night, and Michelle's written a new book. I taped the interview, so I just recently listened to it just earlier. So the book is called The Light We Carry. And the reason I'm mentioning it is that, and we'll talk more about our belief systems next week, but fear could be one of those things that keeps us from our joy. And Michelle's talking about how she has worked to overcome her fears throughout her life. And she talks about we all have a light within. And that kind of aligns with my thinking of, there is in each one of us, there's that potential. So I understand the book is about some of the tools and techniques to find your inner light. So just a little FYI, that could be another thing if you're interested in pursuing some things to check it out. So jumping right into class content for tonight. More techniques. So my internet. I got a message saying my internet's unstable. So last week our focus was on just giving you the experience of joy, helping you connect with joy, giving you a few ideas of how to stay connected. So tonight and next week it's more techniques. So unfortunately, I don't have an actual prescription of this is what's going to bring you joy, or I'd be writing it, waving my magic wand so that we would all have that. So when I want to just point out how joy is really individual for each one of us. And so my intention is giving you as many tools and techniques and ideas of how do you find inside yourself what you love about yourself, how do you accept all parts of yourself, think about what you want in your life and how you want to live. And it's really from getting that connection, getting that alignment that you'll move closer and closer to living in that joy every day, where you aren't so pulled off by what's happening in the world or right next to you, or your emotions and things like that. So kind of summarizing, if you will, what the class is really evolving into, because interestingly enough, it's been evolving as we've been moving along, which is pretty fun and exciting. Tonight, we want to start with talking about gratitude. I know we ended last week with a little bit of conversation. Some of you do some gratitude practices. And Carol, you were just talking about you've been practicing, you've been thinking about being grateful for all those small things. So let's just start with what are some of those things that you do intentionally, or, maybe you don't do anything intentionally, and that's okay. Maybe it's a once in a while you do something, but let's just talk about how we express gratitude.
Well, I think I exercise intentionally to move my body and just feel gratitude that everything still works, because I'm aware of aging and I'm aware I can't work out like I did in my 20s, and focusing on trying to keep what I've got for as long as I can, you know.
Okay, thanks.
Along those same lines, so I'm 46 years old, and I have noticed changes, right? Because they happen probably after our 20s. We start to notice these things and they become more and more. Well, I realized I was getting very frustrated with some things that I was recognizing. And so finally I decided that was enough. And I was going to, as soon as I felt that frustration, I was going to say, but at least I can still use both of those legs, and the gray hairs are coming in, but at least I still have more brown hair, and and my eyesight is going, but at least I can still see, and I know people who can't. So I just adopted the way to make myself feel better.
Oh, that's cool. That's a great technique.
I do a daily gratitude. Mine is not a written one, but I have to have at least 5 things that I'm grateful for. So it was kind of part of my bedtime routine. I have to go through each of those things, and many more days than not, I get way more than 5. Some days they're just very simple things, like it's fall and the colors of the trees are, some of the leaves are red and vibrant gold. They're just beautiful. So they will make my list.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not always something big.
Right. Do any of you have the a gratitude on some days of I got through the day? If you're in that space, it could be that's what it is. Call it what it is.
Or sometimes it's an acceptance on my part. Like I'll admit to you guys yesterday, I was more slovenly. Normally I would say lazy, but I don't do that very often. So it's like, I'm grateful. It was okay not to do a lot of things yesterday because it was my down day.
Mhm. Right.
So sometimes it's just an acceptance of it's okay.
Yes. Excellent point, because we are human and there's any number of factors, and we can cycle back up.
Mhm.
Yeah, in my practice that I do write things down, and it's kind of evolved. So I was focusing on just noting what are the activities I did through my day as a starter. And that was helping me then also think back to, oh, this morning when I went to the gym, maybe I said something to someone or someone smiled at me. And so as I go through my day, I remember the little things that at the moment felt really cool, but I'd forgotten about. And that really gives it just a different perspective to things. And now I started listing out grateful and saying, I'm grateful for. I've done that in the past at different times. And so it's a little different of listing activities and acknowledging what was good. And it's another thing for me to then just also say, well, this is really what I'm grateful for. And sometimes it is that littlest thing more than something that might have seemed more significant. It's like Carol, you were saying, is sometimes those little things that can be so
More
meaningful.
frequent, the little, you know, just tiny little bits of gratitude that adds up to a lot.
Yes,
And
yes.
sometimes you've got to dig deep to find them too, but they're there.
Hmm. Hmm. And that's really the key. If we allow ourselves and being willing to dig that little deeper, um, it can be really powerful. There have been times when I was married, and we would say, well, what was so good about today? And we would share that with each other. And so it can also be something you share with others in the family to, again, help focus on that good. Thanksgiving's coming up. Do people literally talk about what they're grateful for? Some families and some individuals might, and some might not in that same way. So I think in the context of this being the season is why then I'm going to shift to a little bit more expanded perspective. On your play pages, on page 4 for the first of tonight's pages, the word thankful. So that's saying thank you to someone. That's expressing your thanks. There's appreciation, which is really similar. So it's enjoying the good qualities of someone. You appreciate what someone's done. I appreciate that, you took that time to do something. Do we ever say, I appreciate you to someone? I appreciate you and all that you do. I mean, how powerful that is if you're the recipient of that, and how good it feels to say it. So some of these related words, I'll call them, really have that power to build that positive relationship. Kindness. We hear more about kindness. It's just that quality of being friendly and generous. And so in this Thanksgiving season, just thinking about all those words together as similar in what they're doing, how we're feeling when we express them, and how others feel when they either feel that energy coming off of us, or they're the recipient of the thank you note, the appreciation, things like that. So just to give our brain something concrete to reinforce what we're doing, or to encourage, think about, maybe I want to do this more. There has been research around gratitude and a vibrational level. We were talking about that last week. I saw one thing that said it's at the level of love, and another thing said joy. So they're both really high and they're close. So knowing that, if that's a little incentive for those who might want it, or if you're sharing this concept with others, it's not just woo-woo stuff. It's real. There's been research around it that, it does foster that positive outlook. And if it's kind of like Molly, what you were saying about, so in the gratitude, it's shifting your thinking away from what's negative, what didn't go right today, or what's not going well, to what's positive. So whether it's the gray hair, and least I have more brown hair, things like that. It truly does generate in our body more of the feel-good hormones, specifically oxytocin and serotonin. So there is a physiological reaction when we're doing it. It activates the prefrontal cortex of our brain. And that's the altruistic aspect of us. So, with all of that, it helps us deal with adversity, it builds positive relationships, it overall can improve our health. So, that balance of it's not just the nice things to do, there's the research, the conscious brain giving it a little something to know. Um, so, let's talk about a few other things we can do to express thanks, gratitude, kindness, appreciation. Let's just brainstorm. What are things you've heard people talk about, things you might have read at any point? Give ourselves some more ideas that if we want to kind of go down that path.
You could do something unexpected and nice for somebody else.
Yeah, yeah. To piggyback off that, to pay it forward. Every once in a while, you hear more about that. You could do that.
Leave a secret note or a note for somebody. Seen that especially like with kids in their lunch boxes or spouses.
Yeah, nice little surprises.
I texted my daughter saying I really appreciated her and her connections and, just being able to talk each day. And she got that on Saturday morning and she called me right away. She was so excited just to see the expression of gratitude and appreciation from me. She's, it was just really a good connection.
Great.
Validating people if they mean something in your life, no matter how small, letting them know it rather than just thinking about it. I mean, I think that goes a long way.
Yes, for sure.
I try to do that a lot whenever I notice something about someone, because just like you said, Carol, frequently we don't say it, but we think it.
Right.
Oh my gosh, it means a world of difference to someone if we just say it out loud. So I try to, but then I catch myself like later in the day, I should have said that, but I didn't. So it's always a continuous practice, but it's good to be aware of.
Yeah.
Or just complimenting someone, whether you know them or not, on what they're wearing, right? If you like it.
Yes.
You can just see it lights them up.
It does, yeah.
A few days a week I go to the gym really early, and so I'm trying to make it more of a point to connect with people, just even eye contact, a smile, or when it seems like someone the other day was walking up the steps and seemed to be struggling a little, and complimenting her on the color of her top. And so, that little extra moment. Molly, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, I use a lot of lessons like this with my son because I feel like I only have a year and a half left before he's like in the world by himself. So anything I could do to contribute to him. But we were helping a neighbor across the street who's in her 60s, I think, and has never had a new computer, and she was having computer issues, and he's very technology savvy. And so we were helping her, and as we were walking home from her house, I was using this kind of method, like I got to sell him on these things, right? And so I said, helping people, not only, it makes her feel good that we just helped her, but it also makes you feel good. And although I didn't have those words, like you said, about the serotonin and the oxytocin and all of those things, like I didn't have all those words, but I just knew that it made you feel better. So now I have some more science behind it.
Yeah, it makes it a little more concrete.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't need to belabor that. I thought I had another idea and it came and went. So, so this is the getting us started for tonight. The gratitude, whether you call it thank yous, appreciation, kindness, all these things that we can do, and you are probably already doing a whole lot of them, and you'll keep doing them, and just give yourself a pat on the back. The random resources I included in the play pages, there's so much information on the internet and books about gratitude and everything. It was just kind of, I wanted to share a few things. An interesting note about the one on page 5 the Moravian Manor communities. I don't know how I landed on that one other than doing searches, but they point out a couple. And Carol, you're actually practicing some of this, and Molly, maybe a little bit from what you were saying, but thanking your body for all its hard work and what it does, and whether it's in talking to your body or massage or a hot bath or something like that. And that's one I hadn't thought of or heard about really before. Acknowledging and giving thanks for how great you are. So that ties back to what's your positive quality. Do you remember those things? So that can be part of being grateful for who you are as the person. I remember the other thing I wanted to mention, because some of you might volunteer, and your volunteer work falls into this whole category too. Even, the little here and there, the donations and that kind of thing. So.
Christine,
Yeah.
you talked about that movie that you saw, The Mission Joy. Is that available on YouTube? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay, or Netflix or something.
Yeah, it probably is. Like on a Netflix or something. I'm just not sure if it's on YouTube. Because yeah. Good question. Okay, so anything else related to gratitude and all of this? So there's two other things I wanted to kind of review, piggyback on from last week. Oh,
Thank you.
Perfect. I love it. People that are quick with the technology can do that. Thank you. So a couple things to follow up with. Last week we were talking about the vibration and of emotions. So I wanted to piggyback on that and talk about the vibration of thoughts and words and music. So you might have heard phrases like thought directs energy, or change your thinking, change your life, things like that. Well, again, those might seem like airy-fairy, yeah, right things, and yet a little bit of science behind all of this. Have you heard of Masaru Emoto? He's a Japanese researcher, and initially he was measuring the wave fluctuations of water, and then he shifted his work to focus on learning about water and the influence of thoughts and words and music.
I think I have heard of it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the patterns in
Yeah.
water.
Mm-hmm. So what do? Is put some water in a container, write the word like thank you on a piece of paper, attach it to the water, let it sit, I don't know how long, and then he would freeze that water, and then in the frozen state would look at the water under a microscope. And so he did that with the words on the container. He also did it with speaking words to water. And then he also played music, of different types of music. So different types of words, spoken or on labels. And the very fascinating thing, I'll share my screen. It's also on the bottom of your page 5 of your play pages. So how do I get that out of the way? So if we look at thank you, wisdom, truth, eternal, angel, I love you, peace, there's actual formations, crystal forms based on these words. And then if you look at you fool, you make me sick, evil, there's really no crystal formation. It's just fascinating, right? And even more fascinating if you look at polluted water before having prayer, praying on it, and polluted water after prayer. How even that positivity of something that was pretty yucky creates this formation. I got a book even out of our local library that told more of the story, had more images, and giving you this, again, a little glimpse of there's some basis to some of these things that we might have thought are just, what's that really all about? So I'm going to stop the share because I know you also have it handy. And So if you think of then about, well, so what's that really relate to? How does that play out in our world? Well, one thing is our bodies are mostly water. So if we think about what are the words we tell ourselves, or what are the words we hear, we listen to on the news, anything around us, what's that doing to us on that level? And then even more specifically, some of you said you're tired. Yep. If we're saying I'm tired every day and all through the day, guess what's going to happen? Think you ever be untired? If we say I'm stressed, there's not enough time, it could just be part of those thoughts are getting manifested on maybe a physiological level, on a mental, emotional level, and they might then even get buried into the subconscious and then start running our lives in that really subtle way. So the more we might pay attention to or think of, well, so what do we say instead? Because if we want to reprogram our brain, we want to give it something different to think about. Let's give this some thought. So sometimes you could just say, one of those words and an opposite, and that would replace it. And sometimes you have to get a little more creative with what you would say. So let's take the word tired. What's another word we can say? And we don't want to deny the tiredness or the what's going on. So let me also back up and say that it's not to deny it. It's saying, well, and it's okay to be in that temporary state. Like Cynthia, you were talking about, you're in that, I don't think you said a slump, but
I was just less energetic, slovenly.
Yeah. So, and that's okay for that. And she knew it was going to be a temporary thing. So all that's fine. So if though you found yourself saying something repeatedly and you're realizing, I want to say something else, what could be another word instead of tired? Is there a word, or is there a totally different thought you might want to go to? Let's just be creative. See.
I'm energized. But I wasn't tired yesterday. I just chose to do a whole bunch of things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Cynthia, I think your word tonight was relaxed, and you could kind of say tired is relaxed. I'm feeling very relaxed right now.
Yeah, because energized might be a real stretch. And so that's part of what we want to think through. Because if that's way too unbelievable, you don't need to go there.
But relaxed has a more positive sort of connotation than tired.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Think,
You can even say I'm moving a little more slowly, or I'm taking a pause. Again, knowing, and it's all for individuals, what's going to work for you. Carol, you were going to say?
well, a couple of things. I think maybe just saying something like, I think I need a short rest is a little different. I'm tired,
Uh-huh.
It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Mm-hmm.
But also kind of tagging into what Molly was saying, I find it helpful when I get to that place where, oh, I'm feeling so tired, I'm just exhausted, but I know I'll feel better if I rest for half an hour, or I know I feel better if I splash water in my face. I think I just need some fresh air. Maybe I'll just go walk the dog and I'll see how I feel then. So it like offsets the profundity of the word.
Yes. Yes.
I try to do that a lot. I worked with chronic pain patients, and we had to work on sort of mindful thinking around chronic pain.
Mm-hmm.
That, I'm really hurting today, yet I know this is temporary. I'm really hurting today, yet I know if I soak in a hot tub, I'll feel better. I'm really hurting today, but if I call my best friend and chat with her on the phone, I'm going to feel better. So the kind of offsetting the focus a little bit, and it really does help.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's that noticing.
Yeah.
Stress is another one, and when people get stressed, it can be really hard to get out of stress.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes, again, it is just the redirection of thinking of something positive that's happening. Give themselves the positive reinforcement. I can do this. Take a breath, one thing at a time. or, if somebody can take that time to understand where's that stress coming from to get at the root, of course, that's going to be more ideal. And yet, even at that moment, if you're catching yourself feeling that way, how would you rather feel? Another thing you could do is just even ask yourself the question, even from tired or stress. Well, what if I wasn't tired right now? What would I rather feel? What if I wasn't stressed? What could I do? Or what would it take for me to not be stressed? That's even more challenging because then you're giving your brain a choice. What would it take? Kind of the challenge. So it's what I'm trying to get to overall is the awareness of what you're saying to yourself, how you're feeling. It's okay to acknowledge it and to think about, is that really where you want to be? And the more you can be aware of where you are at any of those particular moments, then it helps you take that next step. Well, what would I rather have?
Right.
So, just reviewing my notes. I'll even give an example as I've been doing so much my own discovery work, and this came up as one of those hidden beliefs, and it was that I had to work hard, and life was hard. And as I thought about how can I reframe this, I wasn't going to go to life is easy because that's just way beyond, what seemed realistic and that I could do. And so I came up with a phrase of, it can be as hard as I want it to be, or easy as I want it to be. So when I can catch myself and then just go, well, okay. So it's that whole thing of giving ourselves choices and giving people choices is common when you're working with someone and something's not going well, you're trying to calm them down, giving people choices. So as humans, we tend to like choices. So give your brain a choice. And Molly, you mentioned you tend to see things more positively. So just that overall sense of, overall in life, can you start seeing the silver lining to the cloud? Do you see the glass half full versus half empty? Where do we put our focus? So that's really the piece related to the water. So I mentioned with thoughts, with the words and music. So I didn't include that in the play pages. I kind of forgotten about it, but music too. Masaru Emoto did some studies and showed the differences. So if you think about what's the kind of music you like, so if you're ever wanting to get yourself energized, if you pull that music up, or if you go on YouTube and search high frequency music, you'll be able to see some of them give the measurements of the hertz levels. So if you want to get to another level, just see, does that feel good to you? Because sometimes it might, and sometimes it might not. So just playing around with or being willing to pay attention to what types of music do you seek out? How do you really feel? If others are playing music, does that resonate with you or not? And finding those places that are your ease for what you need at that time. Sometimes you might need the more upbeat, sometimes you might need the more relaxing. So, music can be one of those places, those ways that brings you that higher frequency, higher vitality.
In the 80s, there was a big push around Mozart, and there were conferences around the impact of his music, and they were playing it in classrooms. I think they still possibly are. But apparently it's played at such a frequency that it causes, kind of a sense of calm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's well worth listening to Mozart.
Ah, good to
It
know.
does work, actually. It does work. There's a lot of research into his music. Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
I think
So
there's a few studies also with current music, and current artists, more current artists, to see if people get in more auto accidents while listening to that music versus, road rage or being calm. So there's a number of studies on what you listen to and how it impacts your driving skills and your state of mind.
Oh, cool. Sorry, I was just having this imagination of somehow it, accesses all our radios, so then driving becomes a whole different experience.
Right? No more road rage.
Right, right. So the other thing I wanted to follow up with what I mentioned last week about affirmations. So a couple key points are when you're writing affirmations, if you're writing your own, make sure that all the words are positive. For instance, a few months ago, someone said, I keep repeating, I'm not stressed, I'm not stressed. Well, interestingly enough, our brain doesn't hear the word not. And so it was hearing, I'm stressed, I'm stressed. So if you're writing your own, make sure that you use all positive words. So it wouldn't even be I'm pain free, because that still keeps the word pain. I'm moving comfortably and smoothly and easily, something like that. So be attentive to those words, because again, we talked about just now the vibrations of words. So certain words can, help us get to that higher level a little more easily. Affirmations should also be written in a present tense or as though you've already accomplished them. So you wouldn't want to be saying, I'm trying to be more confident, or I will have confidence. That's putting it in future, and so it's never going to happen. I mean, you're going to keep it out there in the future. So I am now confident, or I am more and more confident every day. The brain is really literal. If you ever just say, well, I want to have more abundance, just in casual conversation. Well, you want to, and so I don't mean to dissect our language completely. It's really the intention to bring some awareness. And because when we are aware of what we're saying, we see how, as we're leading our lives, we can influence too what others are saying by the choices of our words.
They recorded and wrote a book about affirmations. It's quite wonderful. It's like 100 affirmations. They're all in the present tense. And that's definitely something well worth going onto YouTube for, or the library, or getting it on eBay. I just love her work. She sadly has passed away. She was into her 90s. But there is a CD, 100 Positive Affirmations by Louise Hay.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
like listening to her voice. She has the warmest, most calming, kind voice. And at the end, she'll say, I love you. And if you're having a bad day, put Louise Hay on, and she'll always make you feel better.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. She also has a book, Heal Yourself, with
Yeah.
affirmations, and talks about if you have pain and different physical things out of whack,
Power of language.
what the
Yeah.
emotional basis is. I included one of her quotes on page 5 about gratitude. So yeah, she's done a lot of great work, Carol. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
And her publishing site has a lot of freebies.
Yes. So Louise Hay Publishing. Yeah. So lots of good stuff. And one more time, going back to when you do your check-in today, that positive quality about yourself. When you start looking at those negatives, remember the positives, do the replacement. Again, not in denial though of reality. We're human, we have emotions, we're intended to use our emotions. It's the conscious use of them that can really help us along our journeys, or our adventures, as I really prefer to say. Journey sometimes feels hard. I like the idea of an adventure. All righty. So any questions or comments about what we've covered so far? So we're ready to move on to the roadblocks.
Sure.
So we'll start with a roadblock is anything that, stands in the way of your joy or your higher vibration. In the play pages I mentioned, it's things, it's people's, it's situation. It could also be feelings. So I can add that in. So whatever it is that just gets in the way of you feeling the best you want to feel at any point in time. So I'm going to ask you to sit and think about that for a few moments. If you want to write some notes on page 6 of your play pages, or just have some in mind, I think it'll help as we go through some of these kind of frameworks for navigating. So I'll ask if anyone wants to share one of their roadblocks, and if you don't, that's certainly fine. I'm just thinking that if there's something you want to share, that as I go through kind of the frameworks, I can maybe give a little more attention to that, or see if I can weave in some strategies. But totally open to whether you want to share one of your roadblocks.
Well, one of the things that kind of gets me stuck is if a family member's suffering. I'm from Scotland, so most of my family are in the United Kingdom. So that's difficult when I have no control over another person's reality. And yet I know they're struggling. Either they're struggling with a divorce, or they're struggling with an illness, or struggling with money worries, or worries about their children's health. And I can't fix it for them. And they're so far away, and it sort of emphasizes the distance between us.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
you know.
I have a struggle with a particular person, but my struggle is more that I cannot maintain my positive feelings around her because her negativity is just so in your face. And I've tried lots of different strategies, and at this point I've almost given up because nothing has worked. But I'm gonna see is my sister-in-law, and I'm gonna see her at the holidays, and so here we go again is kind of the feeling that I have, and so she's a definite major roadblock for me.
Okay. Hmm. Sorry to hear that. Okay, so we'll start though with some facts about roadblocks. They're part of life, so it's always good to acknowledge that. So if we can accept that and not be resistant, see the lessons in them, see them as those opportunities for growth, find that silver lining, all of that stuff, but they are real. And the roadblocks can be anything from the more minor to more major. So the minor one could be something like, I'm supposed to get together with someone. The day of, they call me and say they're sick. So it doesn't happen. Well, especially because they're sick, not such a big deal. We'd rather not get sick either. But on the other hand, if you were scheduled to meet somebody, you're at the certain place, and while you're there, you get a text that they're not coming for some reason, or maybe they don't tell you until, and you decide to leave. I mean, that might be a little more upsetting. So there's any degree of this, the impact it's going to have on taking you from that place you really want to be, how you want to feel. And then there's the roadblocks that you know about. So Carol and Molly were just sharing, yeah, you're aware of those are the things that you're challenged with, but it can also be something that comes up that you didn't expect.
Mhm.
So it could be anything from last year when I heard my apartment building, my duplex was being sold. Oh, I didn't see that one coming. Well, after I heard the decision, I wasn't so surprised, but when it really happened and it happened in a text, that was pretty surprising and left me pretty unsettled for a few moments. So things that happen, even traffic can be something that it's unexpected, got to deal with it. So with each of these, so if you look at your roadblocks, are they ones that you're aware of in advance, or are they the things that, and how much do they throw you off? I guess just it's maybe that awareness to have in mind. So one of the things that seems like it may be helpful is the serenity prayer to just help us be in that frame of mind. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Because, Carol, as you're acknowledging, you really can't control it, and yet there's still that feeling that goes with it. And Molly, to get pulled out of your positivity, I'm sure is really challenging. So
I just this was making me think of, I guess one of my roadblocks is worry, and how I like to control things more than I realized, of I want things done on my timeline. And so one thing that's helped me in some situations of just well, kind of say it'll be good in the end, just let it work itself out on its timeline and not mine.
Good awareness.
Still hard, but at least it's one mechanism I'm trying to help.
Well, that's a great technique. I mean, that awareness that it's a timing and you can't control it, and giving it permission on its timeline. Yeah. Interesting. So I'm offering frameworks for navigating these roadblocks, because there is no one way, no prescriptive way again. And even with personalities, that we might be challenged with, I could also have someone that, I'm struggling to interact with. Yeah, between Molly and I, it could be because of who we are as individuals and our personal experiences. What might work for her might not really work for me. So there's so many of these nuances to it. I've tried to outline some frameworks, and happy to talk through with each of you your particular situation, just overall, or in that insight coaching session, a meeting, whatever. Because these kinds of things, especially when they're repetitive and they're there, they're just troublesome. And that deeper understanding helps us stay in that higher vibration. So in starting with the road, when you're aware of what the roadblock is, understanding why it's the roadblock, what it is that triggers you. And so some things to think about, particularly when they're individuals, is, do you have different values? When I was married, my husband was into buying lots of gifts for his kids. I wasn't into buying gifts. We had to come up with a way of, well, how could he be happy and I could also be happy. So, are there differences with, how money is spent or saved, how people spend their time? So looking at those core values, what's different? And I don't know if, Molly, that could be a piece that ties to, what's really different. Your values are just really different, maybe. Are there differences of opinion? Is it the basic opinion? We all have an opinion about something, and we often hear, talk about politics, religion, certain things, because bless you, Molly, because of the differences of opinion, and if both people are going to stay at their position, it's never going to get resolved. Is it different preferences? Remember at Thanksgiving time being vegetarian, and my mother, a few times I would be home at Thanksgiving time. Oh, if I put the turkey broth in this, you won't eat it, right? Right. Okay. So are there different food preferences? How do you manage those kinds of things? Um, and are there those past experiences? And Molly, you've referred to the past experiences. So, the more we can understand that, you mentioned that she is so negative. Do you want to say any more about the nature of how that comes across, whether like choice of words or attacks or?
You know how they say body language is 93% of your communication, your body language and your tone of voice. It's all negative, and it's just written all over her face. She looks like she doesn't want to be there. She probably doesn't. And so she lets us all know. And it's just, I've tried love and honor, and I've tried being her friend, and then I've tried being in a different room. And it's still, it just, it doesn't, and I've tried understanding. Christine, I have sat down and thought, what were her, maybe, I don't know all of her experiences, and I've tried thinking about it, and I've even tried asking questions about it, but then her responses just are negative, and that just makes it worse. So yeah, so it's kind of just all of her energy is just way opposite of mine.
Yeah, yeah. With individuals, and it sounds like you've already done a lot of this work, so it is like separating that person from their behavior. So is there one good thing about her that you can identify, or one thing you might have in common that would give you a little bit to hold on to?
Yeah, no, you're right. And I actually thought earlier in the call when I was making the statement about how I say, so my eyesight is going, but at least I can still see, like she's negative, but, then maybe I should try that practice. But my nieces and nephews still have a mom that loves them, and she does in her own special way. So maybe I can focus on that, like we talked about.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, those are the things that I've heard other people talk about, and as I've taught other classes, that there's just kind of a side note, there's something I heard about it through public radio called One Small Story, maybe. Anyway, it's where people who are very different, maybe politically, religiously, just whole different lifestyles, cultures, they come together with the goal of finding some commonalities, because we have the stereotypes or the beliefs, so you just don't know, and so there could be fear. So how do we find a bridge and a connection? And I've listened to a few of the stories of those interviews, and it's often just so powerful. It's that power of listening. And Lamali, it sounds like you've done that listening, and so it's as you say, how it has that effect on you. How do you bring your positivity that can stay strengthened? Is maybe that trick. So your positive words to yourself all day that doesn't even have to include her, because the more you can stay where you want to be, you're not going to be so buffeted by what else is going on.
Maybe I'll do an affirmation that I just say throughout the whole day. And every time she irks me, I'll just repeat it to myself again. I haven't tried that strategy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I like your thought already of, she has your niece and nephew have a loving parent, shifting that thinking. So with those personalities, it can get really tricky. And so it's coming deep within too, to say, what is it I really want? Do I want to be heard? Do I want to be seen? Sometimes those are the little things that we aren't even aware of until we're willing to reflect as deeply as possible. What is it about this that, like when I coached employees, when they're about to have this difficult conversation, they're not going to change that other person. They're not going to change their opinion. But what is it you need? Maybe you need to be heard. You just need to have that one statement to express how you feel when that person says or does such and such, so that they're aware of how that's affecting you, and respecting that. So it can be a real depth experience and delayering. It could be they remind you of somebody else, and that's a real subtle trigger in its own way, that now, you know, you're caught. So it's individual interactions can have a lot of this, stuckness and different perspectives. So the ability to step back far enough. Sometimes when I've been in emotional situations, the techniques I use is that, imagine myself in that situation, what I'm feeling, and knowing that I want to release that emotional draw and charge. And so I imagine myself as an observer. So I'm literally kind of stepping back, stepping back, stepping back until the emotion is diminishing. And I have an intention of, I want the emotion to diminish. And how can I see this now from a neutral place? And then getting reset and believing that, I've gone through a process to do the neutralization of that emotional energy. So it's that intention setting and the ability to get clear about what is it that you want to feel, even in the midst of whatever else is going on. In that whole concept of also how we're thinking about individuals and our own thoughts, an example a woman shared with me a few months ago is that she, in her marriage, she was starting to feel like they were starting to go down toward a road of separation. She'd been doing a lot of work around paying attention to thoughts, had gone to a special program. The guy's name is Bob Proctor. I've heard a number of people have worked with him. He's done a lot of work around our thinking. I think he died earlier this year. So if you want even more into understanding thoughts and all of that, you might check him out. But anyway, so she said she started paying attention to stepping back, on that way of stepping back, and realizing the amount of time he was working and timing of his work, and then as she looked at it and asked herself different questions, said, well, he's wanting to provide for us, and we're preparing for the future, and there's this change coming up. And she was able to then look at him differently, see him differently, think about him differently, and interact in a different way, that then things worked out and they're fine. So it's that challenge of, once we start thinking about something, we have a pattern of how we interact or how we see in people, how do we get some distance enough to see it differently? And I appreciate, Molly, how you've tried so many different things. So kudos to you. You're not giving up. And you're anticipating this, and you're seeking out some ideas. So hopefully a few things will help to support you in that.
Molly, I have a very similar sister-in-law. And so there's a lot of tripwires. You're walking on a landmine, not knowing exactly what topic is safe to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, I will do a few things. I'll say to myself, okay, I can handle this. I've only got 2 hours and it'll be over soon enough. This will be over before I know it. She'll have gone back to her hotel, and there she goes again. This is what I expect. Yep, there she goes again. Yep, she's still. So I go into observer mode, like instead of reactive mode. So I said, well, and then I sort of start to think empathically. To be so miserable, she's really got to be unhappy. I feel for her being so unhappy. I'm so glad I'm not unhappy like her. That's just too bad that she's this unhappy. Wow, look at that. Listen to that. Wow, that's just somebody who is really unhappy. I wish I could help her, but I can at least let her think I'm listening and nod my head and show that I'm engaged, but I don't have to be reactive. And this will be over soon. This will be over before I know it. I've got this. I can handle this. So this is going on the whole time. And
Right.
it gets you through. It gets you through, and then they're gone.
I like that. Thank you.
You do a lot of, oh, really? What? Interesting, interesting. Yeah, I could see it that way. Yeah, wow. Just a thought.
Thank you,
I
Carol.
like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I also think sometimes people cannot help it. I have a very dear friend who is OCD, and it makes her go down paths that I think she would rather not, but she does just the same. And sometimes I have to just try to step back and say, she has no idea how this impacts others, because she's had the feedback that it does impact negatively through her work and everywhere else and through her friends. And she says, you're the only friend who tells me the truth. What's going on? How come these people won't be with me? But honestly, she is difficult to be around sometimes, but I don't think she can help it. And I talked to her about that. So I step back and say, I can take it in small doses, but my expectation is not for her to change.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, she's a really good person. I say that to myself. I know she does a lot of volunteer work. She's a very kind and caring person, but she gets her own way, in her own way, from living a full life based on her phobias and issues.
And so in honoring each person is where they need to be, where they are at that time. And we're in their lives for some reason. Maybe we're to learn the lesson. Maybe we're to be the positive influence. Maybe, I mean, it can be any number of things. So I really appreciate our conversation around observer. And this is about what can you control? That serenity prayer, you can't control others. And yet we
And
can.
it's not personal.
I'm sorry?
It's not personal to the person whose spouse, acting out on you or whatever, pushing your buttons, but it may not be personal to you.
Right,
Right.
right, exactly. You could be representing someone else. Like you said at the beginning, Molly, it could be she doesn't want to be there either. How many times do we have expectations? We have to follow the family rules and, you know, that sort of thing. So then dealing with our own emotions, Laura, you mentioned the worry. Carol, you mentioned the concern. You can be empathetic, but what can you do? So let's talk about, so how do we manage through those? Maybe Laura, with your worry, getting a little deeper of what's that worry all about? What's that particular thing that needs to be completed and why is it so important? How does your timing play into it? What's your investment? What do you want out of it? And for Carol, obviously you've thought about this and you don't have that control. What is it about that still is uncomfortable, that creates
Well,
some angst?
I think it's because my career is in helping people find a way to be happier.
Ah,
But my family, which is very typical, I have a lot of clinicians who are my friends, and we all kind of say the same thing. People pay money to come and sit down with us, but our family doesn't want to hear it. They just see us as the sister or the daughter or the niece or the aunt. They don't see us as clinicians whatsoever. So we have no input when it comes to helpful suggestions on how somebody else might solve a problem. So there's that helplessness in that they don't seek you out, and they'll talk about their best friend came up with some solution and you're like, oh my gosh, I could say that last week. So it's difficult, and I think especially when people make decisions that very clearly were poor decisions from the onset, and anybody could have predicted that they were going to have an emergency on their hands down the road a ways, and here it is, the emergency. And of course, it doesn't help to say "I told you so." That doesn't get you anywhere. But just the lack of control is frustrating
mm-hmm.
when you've got a skill to help somebody, but they're tying your hands and not letting you, right? And so I have to accept that they need someone to listen. They don't necessarily need my advice. Maybe they're getting help just by offloading on me on the phone. Um, I mean, that serves a big purpose, emptying the well, and that can be really therapeutic. So I have to just say, well, maybe I just need to listen now. I don't need to be the one who solves the problems. And, my mother, who had no psychological training, would say to me, Carol, somebody else is going to solve their problem. You don't need to be that person. And she's right. If somebody's got a piece of spinach on their teeth, somebody's going to tell them it's on their teeth. It doesn't have to be me, like, but they've got it on their teeth. And she said, can't let it go because somebody else is going to tell them. And, kind of how it is. Just that somebody else is going to help this person. But where I am right now with this person is maybe just to listen.
Hmm.
That's my job right now.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Good insights. And I can appreciate how hard that can be.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a very big challenge. Like even today now, my husband was going for an orthopedic appointment for his knees. Of course, I've given him the long list of why he needs cortisone injections in his knees because he's limping. We're going to be on a walking vacation. I can take care of myself. Thank you very much. I said, well, maybe I should go with you to speak to the doctor because he'll go to the doctor and say, oh, I'm fine when he's moaning every day long about his knees. So a voice in my head said, Carol, let this go. Let the guy just go to the doctors and he can pay the price of having bad knees on a walking trip. Just let him go. You don't need to fix this. And of course, he did go and he got the injections in his knees. And I was like, wow, he did it all by himself, Didn't need me there. So sometimes you just got to let go. You know.
Good for you.
Work
And
there,
I
don't they?
appreciate that you laugh about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It can be one of the hardest things to let people do it in their way and their timing
Yeah.
because we do care so much and we have information and knowledge. And when that person's hand's not out, if we're trying to put something in it and it's not there, it's just not going to work out.
Right. That's so true.
So like you're saying, you want to be heard, you want to be respected for your knowledge and skill. And yeah, there's just other places to get that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate, yeah, just be the listener. And yeah, it can be really tedious. Keeping those words going, acknowledging, keeping your energy going. So yeah, there are even times you go, well, do I want to stay connected with this person?
Hmm.
And, you know, so great conversations and ideas. I'm noticing time, so forgive me for now just taking a little check-in for what I wanted to cover because I really love this richness of what we've done and this is really a core. So I have a guided meditation I'd like us to do tonight, and maybe it will be helpful as we work through whatever things are coming up. And then next week we can cover the frameworks for those things that are unexpected. Um, and that's more of, in hindsight, what do you learn and how do you kind of be prepared for next time? Um, but before we just switch to the meditation, anyone else have any comments to share about what we've been talking about, dealing with these difficult situations, with these roadblocks? Oh, you're on mute, Cynthia.
I think for me, the roadblocks are more difficult when it's my own fears and emotions that I'm dealing with and not those outside of me.
Sure. Yeah. And so I'm being able to label them. What is the fear and what am I afraid of? And how do I, give myself permission to go a little deeper and get to that source? And I know you're interested in, we're going to do the integrative alignment, so that might help us, even identify, because sometimes those fears are hidden, somehow not even in front of mind. And so they can be working that subtlety that can be really challenging to stay in that higher vibration. Maybe this meditation will help. And I think, Carol, you used the phrase, I got this, or something similar. So that's one of the things as part of this meditation, and that you could use as your own little mantra at those times when you're feeling like you're starting to constrict or pull back from doing something, of giving yourself confidence and permission. So we'll do the meditation. It's about 5 minutes, and then we'll have a few minutes to do some wrap up for today. So for this one, I'm going to suggest that you have something in mind, one of your roadblocks or something that's causing distress. And when that's resolved, what do you want to feel? What would that resolution feel like? You might not even know how it gets resolved, but focus a little bit more on the feeling. So yeah, just sit comfortably, relax, breathe. And so imagine a sphere of golden sparkling energy. So this golden energy, this sphere is very high in vibration. It's love, it's joy, it's inner peace, this wonderful magical sphere. So bring this sphere of golden energy into your heart. Just let your heart be open and enjoy that loving, joyful, peaceful feeling that you get from this wonderful sphere. This golden sphere is reminding you that you are a loving human. You are learning and growing. You are doing the best you can. In fact, you are doing very well. So give yourself some love. Let this golden energy become that love within yourself, and give yourself even a little more love, or lots more love. And so from this loving place, think about the distress that you want to resolve, and keep the feeling of love for yourself. Whatever you're feeling, your distress is, see it with compassion. This golden loving energy is telling you that this distress can and is being resolved. So now bring this golden sphere of energy into your brain. This wonderful golden sparkling energy is seeking out your distress and any negative thoughts, anxieties, and worries that no longer serve you. The golden energy melts away what no longer serves you. So feel your mind be at peace, calm, and still. And from this place of stillness, now think about the positive resolution to the distress or to that feeling. You're planting the positive seeds of change and resolution. So just focusing on that positive outcome, positive feeling. Now we're shifting back to your heart. Bring that sphere of golden sparkling energy back to your heart. We've planted the seeds in your brain. Now we want to nourish the seeds with love from your heart. So again, let that loving, golden, sparkling energy radiate the love in your heart. And even radiate out from your heart to what used to be your distress. Whether it's a feeling, whether it's a person, whatever it was. And so now you can see and feel a different outcome. Even if you don't know all the details yet of how it's going to happen, we know that there's resolution. So feel the love, feel the compassion for yourself and for anyone else who may be involved. Okay, now shifting just a little, tell yourself, I got this. Tell yourself again, I got this. Things are changing. So you can say it again, I got this, I got this. Feel it and know it and believe it. And now imagine a voice from within you saying, you got this. Yeah, you got this. You really do. Things have changed. Now, in feeling that love, give yourself a gentle smile and say thank you. Feel that wondrous golden sparkling energy for a little while longer. It's actually with you all the time, and you can ask it for help anytime. So you can say thanks to this golden energy, give thanks to yourself for all that you do and all that you are. And when you're ready, you can start moving your fingers and toes and bring yourself back to the present moment. Take a few breaths. If you happen to notice anything, if you want to make any notes, if you want to share anything about that. A couple things I'll share is that in that phrase, I got this, it can be a good little mantra to give yourself that confidence and the belief. And the reason that we said the you got this is that, isn't it nice sometimes when people tell us, you got it, you can do this, that encouragement. Well, you can also do that for yourself in seeing yourself, as, that other part of you that can talk to you. So that was part of why we said, you got this. So maybe one of those phrases, maybe both works, maybe, whatever. It's throwing out ideas and techniques. And Einstein has also said, when you can't solve problems, let me call it out. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So part of all of this is, how do we become the observer? How do we get ourselves into a calmer place to be able to look at a situation, to let our objective mind and our hearts too, connect and look at it a little differently. So I have a separate recording of the meditation, so I'll include that again with a follow-up email tomorrow morning. I just want to take a couple minutes to summarize the techniques we've talked about tonight. As we started off with the gratitude, the thankfulness, appreciation, kindness, so we can do that anytime. You can even do it throughout the day. I think, Carol, you mentioned more of throughout the day. Some of us do it in the evening, but throughout the day can also be good. Like a midday check-in, what are you grateful for? It's again, just part of awareness. So whether it's gratitude in particular, but just throughout the day, being attentive to your thoughts. We talked about the vibrations of our words, our thoughts, of music, the affirmations, how we're choosing those positive words and present or tense or having completed them. And then we looked at that serenity prayer as a way to help us look at situations we have to deal with. And our meditation. So next week we'll pick up with some more roadblocks and having something to look forward to every day, and we'll cram in as much as we can.
Well, thank you so much. That was very pleasant.
Welcome. My pleasure. And through the week, if you have questions, comments, anything you want to share, please do. And I'll remember to include the Zoom link in the Friday email, so it's a little handier.
It was there. Just had to look for a little bit more.
Right.
Oh,
All right, ladies, you've got this.
that's right.
Christine, you got it. Lori, you got it. Laura, Carol, you got this. Cynthia, you got this.
And you got this too, Molly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are
Have a
that
great
positive
week.
person. Yes, me too.
Take
We've
care.
we've got this.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes, our mantra. We got this.
Thank you, Christine. Good night, everybody.
My
Yes.
pleasure. Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Thank you.
Good night. Really fun. Thank you.
It was really good.
Thanks.